All right, so we're live. We're live. We're live. We're live. Yes, we're live. And let me make sure. All right. Just muted myself. So we're live almost at the top of the hour. It is June 18th, 2021. Rini Wujau Meneb Eri Ma'at. This is your brother, Wujau Meneb Eri Ma'at. And I just want to say welcome for anyone who has clicked the button to tune in, was notified that we're live. Really appreciate it. I do realize that there are quite a few lives going on right now. Prior to me going live right now, I know there's a debate that's going on. I believe it's still going on. And a couple of other YouTube channels are live. Some of them are about to end. Some of them just began. So, it's a busy Friday. It's a busy Friday. So, just wanted to go live and continue this open discussion type of vibe that we've been having for our past maybe 4 or 5 live sessions. So I just want to continue it for those who may tune in and are not watching the other lives for whatever those reasons are. All right. Or some people are multitasking. I know some people that can do both. They could watch 2 different live streams, you know. That's amazing. But there's people that do that. So regardless, and and for us, that's kind of rough though, because our open discussion live is kind of dependent upon participation. And so if everybody's watching other lives and they're focused on other things, then we're not going to get participation. And if we rely on it, then we're going to kind of be talking to ourselves. So I guess we got to get our skills up. Get our skills up and talking to ourselves. So let's just go have at it. But anyway, I introduced myself. Appreciate anybody tuned in. And if you catch this in the archives, what I'm going to start doing is what I noticed at least is, our open discussion, we kind of go over a few topics. And so this is not like a single topic session. Our single topic sessions, we used to call them Divine Words Wednesday. And that's what it is, Divine Words Wednesday, where we pick a topic and do a presentation on it. And so that's what you can expect. But this open discussion type of thing, we kind of, we say bring your own topic. So we kind of float between different topics. And so what I think is a good idea for us to do is to timestamp the videos based on the topic. Like when there's a distinguished topic change, we'll probably timestamp them in the descriptions. All right. So that'll help people out who are watching these videos on the archives. All right. Anything to help, because I know myself, if I see a video that may have a title that I'm interested in, but then I look at the video and it's 6 hours long, 5 hours long, that's a put off. I'm not going to sit 6 hours to watch a video. That's a lot of time out of a day. And so you kind of just want to go in to the portion that you're interested in. And so I'm gonna see if we can work that out. To timestamp videos based on topics. All right. So anyway, that's my spiel. But whoever else is in the Zoom, you can introduce yourself and BYOT, bring your own topic, lay it out. I see real quick, got Mika in the chat. And you know what? I bet you Mika's one of those people that can multitask. Mika's probably watching about 5 live streams right now. 5 live streams. She probably got one live stream in one ear, another live stream in another ear, and then visually she's probably watching 2 split screens. She probably has 6 computers in her room right now, about 4 mice, 6 computers, and about 10 screens. And I know I'm not lying. No, anyway, but anyway, so yeah, anybody on the chat, introduce yourself and kick a topic. I'm gonna put the link in the chat, by the way.
ETM Hotel. It's your brother June. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show and leave with satisfaction. Hotel.
I like June's intro all the time. Right. What's up, Betty, Ren E, Amy Cat, and I would just like to welcome you all. And just to add, I kind of remember when it was like when we first started the Freestyle Friday, and we were actually pretty much the only people doing like Friday shows at that point. But yeah, I just thought about that when you say there's a couple of lives going on today.
Yeah, we had Wednesday and Friday on lock.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people when we were going hard on we chose Friday because it was open. Because most people went live on the weekend, like the Saturday, Sunday, but especially Sunday. Sunday was crowded, and we chose Wednesday and Friday for that reason. But now, that's definitely changed. Everybody goes live every night, pretty much, They found out that YouTube is giving out money, boy, monetize these videos. Like, boy, let me go live every chance I get. I go live in my car. I go live when I'm in the supermarket. I'm gonna go live when I'm at the spa. I'm gonna go live at the gym. People laying in bed going live. Yeah.
I see an unfamiliar name on the panel. Hotel. Tiarka.
Oh yeah, Tiarka.
Yeah, peace. Yeah, peace. Bro, Ujaru, how extensive is your knowledge of the Sahelian region?
Hold on one second. Let me turn my volume up. You said how extensive is my knowledge on? Just repeat it again.
The Sahel, the Fulani and the Sahel.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm not competent enough to dance around in that, So if you have something to share, hey, or maybe if you had a question, then maybe we.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure you got basic knowledge. I mean, and I don't have a whole lot of extensive knowledge, but I had recently found through my matrilineal DNA that I'm Fulani,
Okay.
and yeah, and they got a whole lot of interesting stories about Fulani, and a lot of other Africans in West Africa don't like Fulanis. And it turns out the Fulani were jihadists, and they were slave catchers, And so, I just try to find out as much history as I can on them from brothers who've been in this area for, a minute, know way more about the topic of West Africa.
Well, you may want to for the Fulani, I'm gonna recommend that you may want to tune into the Mossy Warrior sessions when they go live, the Mossy Warrior channel, because they talk about West African groups and the Fulani. I'm sure they have shows about the Fulani in their archives, or you could bring it up because that's more fresh in their minds, because that's like fresh on the table. With me, I'm all things Kemet, and in the periphery of Kemet a bit, but Fulani, I wouldn't be able to have any proficiency enough to really. I'll be a student and just listen in on a conversation about the Fulani. Now, as far as DNA, so it's interesting because I know a few other people who have had their DNA sequence from either AfricanAncestry.com with Rick Kittles and Gina Page, that company, Ancestry.com, or 23andMe. And well, actually, I think the people I'm talking about, they did it with AfricanAncestry.com, which will give you an ethnic grouping for your haplogroup, your paternal, maternal lineage. And so I know a few people that also go back to Fulani, the Fulani group and everything like that. And so that's interesting.
I had went through genebase.com out of Canada.
Okay, gene based. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So I hope you at the very least now, what I can talk about is those DNA testing, things like that. So I hope that going through that company, that all of the reports you got back, I hope that it's clear for you. You understand what those reports mean and stuff like that, because sometimes people will misinterpret the reports. I've had
Gotcha.
people have asked me about those and had those discussions. But yeah, that's interesting. I encourage people to do it, to get their DNA sequence so you can learn, because it tells you. So let me ask you this, because I'm not familiar with that company. I didn't go with that company. That's a company I've never dealt with. But what do you get back from them? Do they do your maternal and paternal lineage?
Well, I only sent off for the maternal, but they do both, and the autosomal. This how you pronounce it, autosomal, which does
Yeah.
the overall. Yeah, but
Yes.
I
Okay.
only did the maternal side.
Okay. 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 Yeah, that's good though. But see, now here's the thing. So I'm glad you know that there's three. So you got the maternal, paternal, then you have the autosomal, which is your admixture. And so um all three of those tells you they tell those three things tell you three different stories.
Mm.
And so now you have 1/3 of the amount of stories that you can collect about your ancestry, so that's good.
Right,
Um,
right.
that's good. It'd be interesting. So, but I guess you're just starting that out. So I'm sure you probably gonna get your paternal and your autosomal reports also.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They even got a little thing to where they can fine tune your ancestral diet. What diet is best serves your DNA.
Yeah,
So
a lot of companies are getting into that. 23andMe actually leans to health. Like there's pros and cons with all these companies, and they overlap. So AfricanAncestry.com is very highly beneficial for people of recent African ancestry, to go ahead and narrow down and trace out your lineage on the continent. So that's the benefit of that company. 23andMe is actually more health orientated. They have health reports, your preponderance of different foods, reactions, and sicknesses, illnesses, and things like that. That's 23andMe. Ancestry.com, the regular Ancestry.com, they specialize actually in genealogy, family trees, and data like census records and a bunch of records. They have a network of a lot of historical documents and records in the United States and other countries. And people use that company to trace out family trees and genealogy, the grassroots way, paper. Then they got into the DNA, and now they link the DNA to the family trees in their databases. So now if you get your DNA sequence with them, they can connect you into a ocean of family trees, of people with family trees on record that also did their DNA. And you can literally quadruple your knowledge of your family, and be connected in with your family. So that's what that company is good for. You have MyHeritage, you have ftdna.com. Then you mentioned one. So there's a lot of companies out there that have strong points, and so I always tell people to do them all if you want. Be careful of your personal data, obviously, but do them all and know the difference. No two companies are going to give you the exact same results, especially your autosomal admixture, because they have
right.
different reference data. So as long as people understand that, it's all good. But yeah, on your question though, I'm not I wouldn't even try to get down on the Fulani. I'm not knowledgeable about the Fulani enough.
Gotcha.
Yep. but I do know a few people who also, like you, trace back. I'm not sure if it's their paternal or maternal lineage, but they trace back to Fulani. And I think that's great though, because it'll cause people to focus on narrowing down something, some group historically that you can study and feel like you're a part of, and it may influence people to learn
Yeah,
language.
you. Oh, sorry about you. Absolutely right. But on that point, can I ask you a philosophical question about that? Do you think that Africans are too tribal? That there's something that's kind of like holding us back.
No, I don't. Because for all of humanity, humans by nature, we create distinctions. But see, this is what we lost. Okay, so at every point in time, there was always a distinction of a group of people based on things that are alike, and then the unalike would form another group of like. So everybody that did things alike would form their own group, and then one group to the other, it was a difference, it was a distinction. But in the past, we used to understand that in the multiplicity, because that creates a multiplicity, but in that there was unity. So there was two things going on at one time. There was a unity in multiplicity, and then there was a multiplicity in the unity. But somewhere along the lines, that slowly deteriorated. Like we no longer understand that. And so now the multiplicity can become problematic, which is what you're asking about, the tribalism. It became known as tribalism as a problem. And I don't genuine tribalism, or people being into ethnicities or tribes, is not a problem, because we're diverse, and we should understand that the planet is diverse. Not everything is the same, and we're supposed to understand the differences and be able to unify and still understand being different. And so if we can get through that, I think it was not a problem, but it can be though. So we kind of lost that. So people get caught up into this exclusion or this outlawism, and it could be problematic. But I don't think it is originally, or if it's properly defined and executed. Nah, you know, and it's always gonna be because one thing we're never going to get rid of is that driving hard force of cultural differences, where you know there's a list of things that make a culture, and and if we were to put all of those elements that make a culture in their order of importance or strength towards the culture, language will be near the top. And so because people speak different languages, there's always going to be distinctions, because language is a very strong element of what makes a culture. And because you said philosophical
Right.
opinion about that, but it has to do with psychology, why that occurs, how the mind works, how we operate. So tribalism, even if we call it something else, ethnicity-ism or tribalism, is always going to be there. It's always going to be there as long as humans are alive and speaking distinct languages. So it's going to be there. So we better relearn.
Right.
We better relearn
But as someone who grew up in America and who, you know, your neighborhood is diverse, right?
yeah.
So do you appreciate the diversity?
Yeah. I always did. Like, growing up,
Mm.
I think, well, I don't know. See, I'm from DC, and I can say this. Growing up in DC, Washington, DC, it really was Chocolate City. So it really was black. Like I don't remember ever seeing a white person, what we would call white people, in DC, unless you go downtown near, near the government buildings, the White House, the Jefferson Memorial, the Washington Monument, Smithsonian, the
Right.
museums, and all of that. That area, yeah, you'll find a diversity of people. But where I was, and the majority of places I went in DC, still in DC. Nah, it was kind of mono. It was kind of mono.
Right. But I'm just saying a general overall how we grew up. We grew up in a diverse society,
Yeah.
and you know, I imagine that's how it was for the guys who created Molly because they were a diverse group of people, But so even though they were all had darker pigment, they were different ethnicity, so
Hmm.
they were diverse. But I was explaining that to somebody earlier today that they was trying to describe the adjective black. I'm like, well, they was there's someone else trying to describe what they're seeing when they say black, because we were all black, and even though we was different nations or different tribes or however you want to label it.
Yeah, so it's like this. It's really it's we don't like look at ourselves this way, but we need to. So like
Mm,
you have um among the animal kingdom, you have a list of cat-like animals. So we have the
mm,
lion, tiger, leopard, jaguar, cheetah, you know,
Puma.
puma. All yeah, we can name all of those cat-like animals, and we can actually group them all into one big category called feline. You know,
Right.
so all of them are felines, but yet we could drill down or zoom in and we could see the distinctions. A lion is not a cheetah. A cheetah is not a panther. A panther is not a leopard, you know, but
Mhm.
all of them are felines, but we know that there's enough similarity to where we could put them in one big container, but then we also know within that big container we can make distinctions. And that's the same with humans. And so we have this big container that people like to call black. So we got black people, yeah, but then within that you got distinctions. You got different types, different kinds of quote unquote black people. And so we have to relearn that and and
Right.
and get that understanding, because we have to start defining the we. And I know coming from United States, quote unquote African American perspective, that's one of our biggest challenges, because
Yeah, we don't see that.
right
Yeah.
we have an identity crisis going on. We
Hmm.
have a big problem with identity,
Right.
and it's pretty unique on the planet. Like we, in that sense, we are unique.
Hmm.
You know, out of everybody else on the planet, we are unique in that way, where we
And,
don't.
and I'm saying, but I'm saying, would y'all rule that works in the same way with the white population? Because a lot of them was just coming out of slavery, with the Ottomans, the Umayyad, the Mongrels, the Slav in the Baltic regions with the Barbary slave trade. That was the first foreign war that the United States fought, was defeating the Berbers at Tripoli. So a lot of white people came here. Well, a lot of Europeans came here and were given the designation white, as far as the political designation, and we were all blanketed with black. But those are different types of people who came here poor and broke, and a lot of them fresh out of slavery. But it's the same trick being played with those words, black and white, and blanketed people by their skin color.
Exactly. Yes. And that's a big issue that we better get a grip on really quick. The entire social construct of race, we better learn what it is for real, and start to understand it, to know what to do, how to navigate that thing, because it's a social construct, but it has real effects on our behavior and our life. And so we better really understand that. You know, we got to understand that the whole hierarchical classification of white, black, it's five. It was five, and they changed names, labels, but it's pretty much five. You got black. They used to use all colors: black, red, yellow, white. But now it's, you know, black is still black, white is still white, predominantly. But then you have oceanic, you have Pacific, and you know,
Polynesian.
all right, all
Pacific
these other different
Polynesian. Yeah.
classifies as race that's outside of ethnicity, but race. And so we better really understand what that really means and stop just saying things, just stop saying stuff for the sake of saying it. But yeah, but so, you know, to kind of go back to what you were saying, tribalism, I think that we need it more. We need to understand it more. And we got to understand the different layers. You got the layer of nationality, which is your membership with a nation. Then you have your ethnicity. Then you have and then people like just jump from there to the genetic level, which is a totally different monster. And so we better
And socially, and socially, you know, you know, kind of like leave, you know, because sometimes, you know, those tribes amalgamate, you know, just based off social religious bonds, you know,
right. Yeah.
especially with the Berbers and the Amazigh, you know, and
Well,
the Arabs.
a lot of that has happened and goes on. And plus the era and time we live in today where we have free travel. I mean, not free as in money, but we travel long distances very quickly because we have technology and stuff now, planes and everything. There's a lot of amalgamation, mixing, and movement around. Human populations move or people move. And sometimes whole families pack up, and go relocate somewhere. We don't necessarily have migrations um, now, but people move, and then war, because a lot of
Exactly.
because of
Yeah.
war, you have like U.S. military people from the Vietnam War, Korean War, World War One, two, and whatever. You got people that will be stationed in these different countries, and then they start a family, and over years and years and years. So it's a lot of different things going on. People start off vacationing and then relocating permanently. Like you think you can go to
Lot
Brazil.
of blacks in Germany like that, like how you just described. A lot of blacks stationed in Germany. A lot of
Yeah.
blacks from African Americans in Germany like that.
Yep,
Germany like
Germany. I know a few that either are there or were there. Germany, I think Japan, um,
that.
and things like that. So yeah, and definitely the
Yeah.
Middle East. You know, definitely in the Middle East. So,
Yeah.
but we,
But they consider Zanj in the Middle East, you know, and like I was also telling somebody today that out of everybody in the diaspora, and I hope this don't make me look like no coon or nothing like that, but out of all of the diaspora, no one has the rights and the privileges of citizens and citizen. You know what I'm trying to say? Being a citizen,
mm,
uh, like the people of African descent in America. I don't know no country because man, where they chilling at up there in the Ottoman Empire in Turkey, you know, they treated like Zans on in Saudi Arabia or Baghdad, they treated like Zans. You know, it's bad. It's bad. I mean, in Britain, um, you know, they say they got to kind of walk a tightrope. You
mm.
know, in France, I think they pretty free. You know, but
But
I
see,
don't know.
this a
Mhm.
thing. Like I said, we better get a grip on this social construct of race and how it has real effects and how it plays itself out. And we better really get a grip on that, because when we understand it, we'll know that the world over, the place that black has, not people,
Right.
but that classification. And then the people who classify themselves as such, then there's a relationship, there's a trickling of the behavior and the outlook and the lack of agency. We're going to be treated a certain way, and that's what
You're absolutely right.
we're
Yeah.
bear witnessing to all of that stuff. Zenji,
Mm.
I mean, doesn't matter what word we use. It's that class, it's that level, that social level on the world stage. You know, and we in America though, we should be able to learn and understand it a lot faster than elsewhere because this is where it is really, really used.
Right.
You know, this whole social construct of race.
Right.
Because, you know, we're like monolingual people. Most people in America only speak one language, which is speak English. They may know a few words of somebody who they
Spanish or something.
from somewhere, a little Spanish just here and there,
Yeah.
a little sprinkle. Um, and then we have this consciousness of a we that really doesn't exist. This
Right.
this flat blackness, like we, you know, this we, like who are the we?
Right.
And we never define it, and we actually assume like this like this unsaid tacit agreement where where black people in America assume that everybody who is black in America are the same,
Right. And we're not.
and we're
And
not.
we're not.
And we're not. But that's as far as we go. You know, some people who realize, okay, we're not, but then that's people get stuck. Like, okay, if we're not, then what are we? And that goes into the identity problem. That's the big challenge. Defining these we's. There's no one big we. The biggest we is all of humanity. Homo sapiens sapien. That's the big we. But then you can start creating these little we's, and we've never defined that. And even in me saying it, I just now said the word we. We have never defined it. And so it's a circle. We can't even talk about it without using the word we. I just said it again. We can't even talk about it. Like, who's the we?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's a big problem. I'm telling you. And I've been on that. I've been on that. I've been looking into that for a minute. And you know, I want to have a conversation about it, but I'm talking about, you know, a real conversation. You know, real conversation about it. But so let me
Just to add on that before you switch
oh, go
topic,
ahead.
because you were talking about the tribe, and I thought it was a really good conversation and the question that was asked, because just as an example of having lived in Europe and Africa, I would say that the thing with the race thing, I think, is mostly in America, and then also I've seen that in the UK as well, where race is something that obviously you have to define when I'm applying for certain things and whatnot. And I'm not sure if there's any other country in Europe. There probably is, but for the most part, all the countries that I've that I've been to in Europe, you don't really get that. So, and I wanted to say that, like also with the, like whether it's you're talking about the white people or the black people in Europe, you know, even white people see themselves very, like differently. It's not like all white people, because everybody identifies themselves. It could be, it could be we are Danish. Somebody else could be we are, we are Swedish. Even though even if that war used to be one kingdom, then Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and whatever, they see themselves as very different people. Obviously, those people might see themselves collectively as Scandinavians, but they'll also see themselves different from other European people, like people coming out of Romania and all of that. So you do get, it's not just tribes like within the continent as people would assume, but tribes also within white people. And I would also like to agree with what Uja was talking about. That you do need to be tribal. It's just that the word tribal gets a bad name because you hear a lot about tribal wars and conflict and whatnot. But what most people forget, what precipitates those kind of conflicts usually is not the tribes themselves, with it as in the differences themselves, but it's usually lack of resources. When there's a squabble over resources, that's when different groups start fighting each other. But it's not because of the differences in those groups, but for the most part, it's just with resources. But I would agree that being tribal is a necessity because because the thing that tribes provide is like there's these things like protection, and then there's you have like a sense of belonging and all that stuff that everybody needs. You have an identity within groups, and you will see that even places where people say that they don't, there's no tribes, you will see even things like gangs and things like that. There is always that's like a human need. You will always find it everywhere, even where you might not think that tribes or being tribal exist, because human beings naturally do need to to be protected, need to feel like they belong to a certain group and whatnot. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, I agree, and the thing about that is that the main identity here, it wipes away past nationalities and blankets you with either white or black or either yellow.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's
But
crazy because it's like you see it a lot here like in America, and then you also see it in the UK. And I think that's what Wujal was saying. Like mostly you find it like in places where it's like there's one language, which is mostly English. I don't know. That's just a pattern that you could probably put in there as for those two places where I've seen where race is a thing.
Yeah.
like oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say. So go ahead, finish up because I want to make sure that we we kind of open it up for other topics and stuff like that. But go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I just all I wanted to say is that the attitude that's like predominating the political atmosphere right now, which is race. You have a lot of like white people who are strongly identifying with that and thinking that all of them have participated in some type of atrocities toward black people and somehow responsible. But at the height of the slave trade here in America, only 5% of people own slaves, and like 20,000 of them are black. But it was like 4 million or something like that, white people. And they were aristocratic class of people. Most white people that came here through Ellis Island or Paris Island, whatever the name of that island, the Statue of Liberty on, they came here dirt poor and broke. They didn't know anything about an international market they didn't even have land to like think about getting a slave to work the land because they were dirt poor and broke and barely out of slavery themselves. But they've magically been blanketed with the term white, and black codes have been set in place. And I'm not gonna go further because we gonna open it up for another topic. But I'm just saying this: they have a strong affinity with the word white, and that's the game that's being played right now.
Yeah. I do want to say something on that. Let me just see if I can share my screen because I've gone over this many times and I love the topic, but I think that I would like to focus on that topic and have like a straight discussion about it. And I've done that, in the past, but I definitely don't mind doing that again. But I just want to share my screen and just give a couple of share a bit of information about that. See, in order for people to have a worthwhile, let me just lock it on my screen for YouTube real quick. All right, there we go. So in order for a good conversation, a progressively forward moving conversation to happen about the things we're talking about, we have to definitely understand ontology and taxonomy, which are basically kind of technical terms for how things are categorized. So ontology is basically how existence is categorized. It's more so your psychological container buckets of how you categorize things in your world, your universe, existence. And then taxonomy is like this hierarchical ordered classification system that we create. And these are things that are very natural and that all of us do it individually, on an individual level, collective level, and then all of humanity. We do this, and this is how nature itself operates. Okay, this is just what we can observe. So I just want to show real quick what this means, and I'm just sharing something I shared before, and before I did a whole presentation on this, maybe about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. So I'm just sharing a couple of these slides. So on the screen now, first of all, can y'all see that? Let me make sure. It's on YouTube. Let's see. Why am I not seeing? Oh, there we go.
Yes, it's there.
Okay. All right. So on the screen, we have this is the taxonomic list, hierarchical list, right? And so what I point out here is going up and down, which will be the y axis, and then you have the x axis. So along the y axis, we have what's called rank. And so each level is a rank. And then along the x, going left to right, will be a file. So we have rank and file system. That's what it is. Now, this happens to be the rank and file system of Homo sapien sapien, which is what I have up here, big and bold. All right. So the way that this works is that the higher in rank you go, the more inclusionary it is. And that's why you have over here, it says it's very, very broad. It's the greatest number of organisms, the higher the level that you're dealing with. The further down you go, you become more and more specific. So the further down you go, you become more exclusionary. And so now you get more detailed and more distinct. All right. And so that's basically the gist of it. And on any one of these levels, there are several different files. Okay. And like I said, this is only showing the file of Homo sapien sapien. So that's why you just see this one column up and down. So we can start at the top. So the broadest level is life. This is anything that's living, okay, that we define as living and life, that has life. And that includes a whole bunch of things on the planet, All right. So this level is very, very inclusionary. It has everything that's living in it. And as we move down, we're going to start creating criteria that's by default are going to be inclusionary rules and exclusionary rules simultaneously. So we go down one level. We're at the level of domain. Now, each of these levels have a name. So this is what you see on the screen. The level of domain. Now, for Homo sapiens, we have eukarya or eukarya. And so the rule to be included in this domain of eukarya is that these are things that have life, but they also have cells that have a nucleus and organelles within membranes. So not only does it have to be alive, or what we would define as life, it has to fit this criteria as well. And if it does, boom, we put it in this container. It's under eukarya. Now we go to the level of kingdom. And now we have a kingdom called Animalia, who we know as animals. So not only are things that are included in this kingdom animals, but they also have to be eukarya. So they have to have cells that have a nucleus and organelles with membranes. But now, to add on to the rule, they have to be organisms that have the ability to move on their own. So right here is where plants split. So plants is in a different kingdom because plants cannot move on their own. So we have the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. But Homo sapiens sapiens, we're in the animal kingdom. So we can keep going. So every level below the top level is inherited. So in other words, you have to meet the criteria of everything above you to be in the one that we're at. So now we're going to move to the level of phylum. So the level of phylum for Homo sapiens sapien, we are in the phylum of Chordata. and chordata are animals, which means we have to be in the animal kingdom, first of all, but we also have to have a backbone. So there are animals that don't have a backbone. So this is where we would split from them, but yet they would be animals and we would be animals. But now when we go down, they get excluded and we're still in the game. All right. This is like a process of elimination. We're still in the game because we have a backbone in chordata. Now we go to the level of class. Now, Mammalia is the name of the class we're in. Homo sapien is in. So not only are we animals with a backbone, but now we have to have hair and milk glands or mammary glands. All right. So we are chordates with hair and milk glands, and now we can classify ourselves in a class of mammals, mammalia, and everyone agrees that we as humans, we're mammals, but whales are mammals as well. All right, but we're not whales. Okay, so we go down to the order. Our order as Homo sapiens sapien, we are of the order of primates. What are primates? Primates are mammals, and remember, mammals are chordates, and chordates are animals, and animals are of the domain eukarya. So see how everyone inherits the other? So we have the order of primates. So we're mammals with collarbones and grasping fingers. We have that thumb, or grasping fingers, I should say. All right, because let me leave it there. But we have grasping fingers. Now, mind you, these descriptions I have on this slide, the screen, they're not exhaustive. So I just highlighted these rules. Okay, so there's more to this, but I wanted to be brief. So that's primates. So we are primates. Homo sapiens sapiens, we're primates. So we're everything coming down. Now we get to the level of family. Now we're in the family of hominidae. What are hominidae? Hominidae, first of all, is plural. For we are primates, obviously, because we just left that. Primates with relatively flat faces and 3D vision. Okay. And, there's other criteria that I don't have here. But that's what we have to fit, the rule we have to fit to be included in the family of hominidae. All right. Now we get down to the level of genus. So what is our genus as Homo sapiens sapiens? The first word homo is the giveaway. We're in a genus of Homo. What are homos? Homos are hominids, which is hominidae, with upright posture and large brains. Okay, so we're in a Homo genus. Now we get to the more specific level as we've been coming down to the level of species. What species are we? Now, the nomenclature for species is, they call it bicameral or binominal, where you have two words. So our species is Homo, which is the genus, and then another name, created for the species. So we're Homo sapiens. That's our species. And Homo sapiens are a member of Homo. That's our genus, with a high forehead and thick skull bones. And so now we the standard description is not just Homo sapien, but we're Homo sapiens sapien, because you have Homo neanderthalensis, Homo heidelbergensis. You have different homos that are human, because from the word homo we get human. So we have different homos or different humans that no longer exist. They've gone extinct, and we're the ones that's extinct. But anyway, my point to show this is that this taxonomy, this concept of classification and how orderly this is, and how we have inclusion rules, and by default there are also exclusion rules, because anything that doesn't fit this rule will have to go into some other category. But if you fit within this rule, you meet that criteria, you get included. So inclusion and exclusion are simultaneously binding as you come up and down. And so we have to understand this. Now, at the level below species, we have a more distinction, where we get into this leap into the social construct of race. And so, like, we have one humanity, Homo sapiens sapiens. Every living person on the planet right now is of the same species. But now we further subdivide that below that level into the social construct of race. It's not based on biology, has no biological reality. But now, in biology, race is more equivalent to species or clades in a biological definition of what a race is, because it's simply a distinction being made. That's it, but not this social construct that we think white, black, red, brown, yellow, and all colors we give. And some people even name continents. Oh, you're Asian, thinking Asian is a race and things like that. So we have to understand this. And this is the only way we can have an intelligent conversation about human groupings. And so one other thing I want to share. So let me just give you an example of how this classification works and how it starts to exclude and include. Remember when I said the higher you go, when you move upward, you're more inclusionary. As you come up and going down, you're more exclusionary or distinct. Okay, so now instead of starting at life, we're going to start at the domain, because remember the top one is life. But at the level of domain, we have eukarya. All of these things right here on the screen are in the domain of eukarya. Plants, insects, fish, rabbit, cat, fox, jackal, wolf, and dog. All of these will comfortably fit in this domain. Okay. Because what is eukarya? Eukarya is defined as cells that have organisms that have cells that have a nucleus and organelles within membranes. All of these creatures have that. We go to level of kingdom of animalia, animals. So we have insects, fish, rabbit, cat, fox, jackal, wolf, dog. What got bumped out? Plants. Because plants no longer fit the criteria. So they got bumped out. Okay. Plants is a different kingdom. So plant has its own kingdom, but we're on kingdom animal or animalia. Now we go down to phylum of chordata. Chordata are organisms with a backbone. So now we have fish, rabbit, cat, fox, jackal, wolf, dog. What got bumped out? Insects. Insects don't have a backbone, vertebrae. Okay, well, most of them, but in general, insects. So they got bumped out. So an insect would have a different phylum. I just don't know what the name of that is right now, but you can look it up. It's a different phylum. It's not chordata. Going down. So mammalia, mammals. So we have rabbit, cat, fox, jackal, wolf, and dog. Out of these that we started with, what fell off? Fish. Fish are not mammals. That's why whales are not fish. Whales are mammals. But because they're in the ocean and in water, people call them a big fish, but it's not. Okay. And so on. So I'm not gonna go. So by time at the end of the day, when we get down here, I'm gonna show you how narrow it gets. The one thing that survives all of these criterias is the dog. Notice how the dog comes all the way down the list because we got narrow. So in the genus of canine or canis, we have a jackal, a wolf, and a dog. Canis. Foxes are canids in a family of canids, but they're not of the genus Canis. They're in a different genus, and I don't know the name of that off the top of my head either. But you can look it up. Fox will fall in a different genus, but jackal, wolf, and dog are in the same genus. But now we're getting more narrow. In Canis lupus species, remember, species is binominal. You pretty much always get two names on the level of species. So we have Canis lupus, which will be dogs and wolves. So the jackal is in a different species. And then we have subspecies. We have Canis lupus familiaris, and that's the dog. So it splits. So anyway, wanted to show that. Third and last one on this topic. When it comes to, and this is just an example, when it comes to human populations, for some reason, we don't see it this way. And so here's an example that I spoke on before when, I had a discussion about the ADOS political advocacy movement, educational movement. And I did this diagram just to show this taxonomy. So at the top here, you have global blacks. And the criteria for this is anybody who's considered black. So this goes for anybody around the world who will fit in the description of what people will call black. And that's usually a lookership thing based on how a person looks, the skin, and so on. So this is a whole lot of people. But then if you drill down, we have different blacks. So we have blacks that are in Africa, we have blacks that are in America, and we have blacks that are elsewhere. Out of the blacks that are in America, we can make distinctions. We have blacks in America that are here through immigration. And we have blacks in America here through the transatlantic slave trade, being, a descendant of a person who was kidnapped in the transatlantic slave trade. So we have two different types. And then we could further go down, but I was showing this because looking at this and understanding this, we would finally start to define the we and understand that the power that we're looking for, like we would pump our fist up and say things like black power. And that's on this global level of blackness, but there's not enough distinction. That's too inclusive for there to actually be power. Like we have it twisted. Power comes from being well-defined. Well-defined. Because look at it this way. If there's any blur, okay, look at it this way. In order for you, let me take this off now. In order for you, and we're talking about power, right? And I'm gonna give this analogy, and I want to make sure I see the chat so I'm not losing anybody. And by the way, anybody in the chat want to come on the panel, you're welcome to. The link is in the chat. It's pinned at the top. So if you don't see it, look up at the top. It's there. You can click it. So here's the example I'm gonna give. Fighting, whether you're boxing or martial artist or whatever, and you want to strike someone. And we're talking about power, force. The force in your punch or in your strike is gonna be heavily dependent upon your legs. Your arms and your fist is gonna be the one that directly does the striking, but the force and power behind that is gonna depend on how you plant your feet. Okay, same thing in basketball. In order for you to dunk or to jump real high, it all matters on how you plant those feet. Okay, so to get your hardest punch, you got to have your feet and your what do you call it, your core in such a way to where you can get the maximum force, the maximum power for your strike, for your hit, for your blow, whatever the case is. Now, because that's the case, if your feet are planted on soft ground or flabby ground, you're not going to have any force behind that. If you were to try to jump your highest and dunk or whatever the case is, and you jump off of something that is flimsy and not solid and still, then you're not going to be able to jump your highest. Okay, these are facts of physics. Okay, so I'm not saying anything rocket science or anything out the blue. So what that is in the analogy, so I'm saying that as an example or analogy to power. So things that are well-defined, the well-defined part of it in the analogy is the solidness of where you have to plant your feet to take off, to push off. And so the pushing off of something solid is where you get your force and power from. That's the beginning of it. That's the source. And so for us to say black power without it being rigidly defined, we're not going to get any power out of that. And so until we properly define the we, we're not going to have any agency or power. And so, and that's part of the game. The game is to throw us off from even thinking that that's something we have to do. Like we don't even see that is something to even do. That's how far removed we are from even looking at that direction. We think by all of us identifying as being Black, that has power. And it doesn't, because that flat Blackness is very, very vague. It's very, very like quicksandish, like sandy. It's not a solid ground. It's not a solid bedrock. And so to the earlier question, I think Emiket even spoke on it. Ethnicity-ism, or AKA tribalism, is actually a good thing, because at the very least, you properly define the we to cultivate agency to have power. Now, whether that power is enough, we could argue that, but I'm saying that's the beginning of it. And we don't even look to do that. We don't even look to do that right now, because we're Black. And so now it works in reverse. Because we self-identify as this flat Blackness, and Black as a social construct is at the bottom, we get treated a certain way. We have certain expectations. Society itself has certain expectations.
Bingo.
Of how things and how people are treated. And that's just, and so until we recognize all this stuff that I'm saying, and like I said, this deserves a whole like 2-hour really a series of conversations. And I always say that even when I gave a whole presentation, I know that we have to, in me giving a presentation like 2 years ago, I said this is going to have to be like an ongoing discussion. So I realized that, but I'm saying, I'm just throwing this out here just for people to understand this, that there is no power in Black. Black has no power. And that's why we see Black power is really a knee-jerk reaction to white power. But I mean, our use of that Black power, Black African power. Like we even put the word African up in there now. Black African power, Black power and whatnot. But there really is no power in Black. We will have more power if we actually start to definitively, surgically define the we. And a we, by definition, would be people that are so solid on the same page and doing the same thing and seeing things the same way and behaving the same way, to actually, have that coordination. Because you can't do anything without coordination.
Can I interject right here, Ujaru? Because it's about everybody getting on code, and what I mean by that is like today is the first Juneteenth that's recognized by the federal government, and it's on the 18th, but we celebrating it as Juneteenth. And a brother named Kevin Wesley helped me see this about time, about how we think that is June the 18th right now, because that's what we see on the calendar. But the calendar and the thing on the end of our arm on our wrist is only a way for man to mark the sun in this solar system. If you leave this solar system, you'll have to find another way to mark time, because we are doing it based off of the earliest technology, which is a sundial. It just evolved into a Apple Watch, but that's how we mark in time. And, even the calendar, switching over to the Gregorian calendar in the, I think it was the 16th century when the British did that, but my point about that is people have to be educated to the date and time to know what date and time it is, and everybody have to get on code. And what you're saying is to define the we, is that people who are willing to take up the same ethics and morals that certain I hate to say word black because you talked about it so bad, but certain black people are trying to do, and people who are trying to get on that code. I think that'll define the we as far as the black American.
Yeah, and I don't want to get it. I don't want to be misunderstood. Black is not like it's okay. It's just that we have to understand what it means. And so not to give it a false, we can't lie on it. We can't have these false assumptions about that. And so that's why I'm saying outright, there's no power in black, because black is a vaguely, it's very elusive and vague. It's too inclusionary to have power. And so that's like, for example, um, we're all human, we're all bipedal, we all have two legs, and all living human beings on the planet can, because we're the same species, we can interbreed with each other. We can breed, we can reproduce, you know, but we can't do anything on that level because there are sub levels of distinction where the core of the power comes from. You know, you got to look at the source of the power. It's not at that broad level. Power is not at the broad level. Just like a plant, the plant, the nutrients that the plant has to grow comes from the core, the root. You know, and so like the power comes from not that top vague broad level. It comes from that bottom underlying level that's at the core, and those are the definitive inclusion and exclusionary rules that define the we or the we's. And that's why, and check this out. This is why here in, and I can only speak from American perspective, all right, because I'm a citizen of the United States of America. I'm an American, and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna speak from my own experience that share with other Americans. Here in America, us that we call ourselves African Americans, this is why foreigners will come into this country and seem to be more successful a lot faster than those of us who have been here all of our lives, through multiple generations. Because when you come from an outside place into somewhere, you are already conscious of the necessity of the core of defining that we. And by nature, you're forced to define that we, because you are a foreigner. You're in foreign territory. So, like, for example, if any of us goes to, let's name a country, let's say any of us go to China right now, we don't know a lick of Chinese. We don't know how to speak Chinese except for hi and bye. That's it. When we go to China, eventually, and let's say we're at a restaurant or at a place where there's like 1,000 people, right? You're gonna feel out of place. I mean, you know, to a degree, you're gonna feel out of place. And then the moment that you hear somebody else speaking English, you're gonna move your table right over there next to them and be like, "Hey, how you doing? You speak English too? Oh, okay. Oh, what's up?" And they're gonna become instantly your friend. Because why? Because now you have somebody else to relate to. So the two of you become a we based on that simple thing. And so what I'm saying is that this is why that phenomenon exists, where we're here in America, and it always seemed like foreigners, be they self-identified as black or not, seem to excel faster or do things faster, or even look at African Americans as being a little lazy and this and that. Be like, oh man, y'all don't even realize what y'all got. Foreigners always seem like go-getters. Like, you know, they get the job done. They come here and get busy because they're working off of a power that we don't understand. And that power is at the core of this natural psychological event that happens where we define the we. And we don't do that. We don't understand it, and we don't attempt to even look that way. We think all of us that call ourselves black, we're all the same. And we actually think there's power in that. There's never been power in that. Never been power in that. And it's a fantasy. If we think that there's power in that, we're doomed. That's why we're not going to get. That's why we're not getting anywhere now, and we won't get anywhere. For real. No real progress. What we got right now is, in comparison, now I'm speaking relatively, is like crumbs. Like we have had success and progress, but relatively speaking to the bigger picture, man, that is small. It's small. That's why other people can come here and be a lot more successful, a lot faster. My last example, and I always like to back up what I'm saying by demonstrating, giving examples. Look at the Asian American community recently, and look at the LGBT community recently, or fairly recently. They got legislation passed for protections and all kinds of things in a very, very, very short period of time compared to African Americans here in America over decades of marching, protesting, the civil rights movement. We have several movements, several organizations that were part of movements and things in order to get things done over a long period of time, whereas the LGBT community and more recently the Asian Americans have got legislation and certain things passed like that, relatively speaking. And can nobody refute and argue those points, because this is a matter of historical record, recent history. We could look back even within our lifetime, my lifetime.
Can I ask a question, or did you want to move on? Because I know you were trying to wrap it up, but I did have a question.
I was trying to segue into something else, but hey, go ahead. I mean,
Okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so if that's how you see things, because I know you were also into the reparations things. You were interested in that. You spoke on some of that stuff, right? You covered some of it, right?
Yes, indeed.
So if we think that way as a collective, then how do we make reparations make sense, or how do you make it make sense if we don't get it?
It's not. If we don't get like, and what I'm talking about is really just highlights. Like this full conversation is really, it's a whole bunch more. But if we don't get it, then we're not going to get it. If we don't get what I'm talking about and the things that I'm leaving out, if we don't get that, we're not going to get reparation. We're not going to understand restorative and reparative justice, because we don't have a we that understands and is going to have that demand for that. We don't understand that. And so that's why listen, the topic of reparations have been on the books for a long time. It's thanks to the recent advocacy movements, specifically ADOS, that brought it to such the limelight that it's been in the recent election cycle. In Cobra and other organizations have been around for a long time, have been arguing those points already. So it's been there, but the recent spotlight on it, to where it became a talking point among presidential candidates and all this and that, that's a recent surge because of the recent advocacy of that. But like I said, if we don't get it, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get it. And that was my arguments during all of that, is that people are arguing the wrong things. You got this fight between Pan-Africanists and ADOS folks. You got a fight between the immigrants and people who are immigrant here versus ADOS. And I'm like, that's all a distraction. Like, I mean, if people can't see that, like, we're doomed. That's like so obvious to me. That's a bunch of noise. That's a bunch of noise.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So we better get it together. And it starts with a proper definition of the we. We got to break up that blackness. See, we're all human. And to identify as being human is not bad. It's not evil. It's not bad or nothing. It's just not useful. It's not useful. It's like something that we are, and we can label it and have a conversation at that high level, but it's not useful for other stuff, other things. And that's how blackness works. It's not useful. We self-identify as black. Now what? What does that even mean? Because it's not a biological reality. It's a social construct. It's man, it's crazy. So anyway, but man, and this all stems from the first question about tribal, tribes and tribalism, and I'm saying that we actually need that. Like, we better start looking at things objectively,
Yeah,
because that Emika hit it. Humans, that communal aspect of our humanity, um that human nature of feeling like you belong to something, and that you're going to protect it and want it to prosper. That's ingrained in our very human fabric, our humanity itself. You know, and if anybody cannot see what I just said and it's not real to you, then exchange what I said and put the word family in there. This is why you will go out your way to protect your family, because your family is something that you belong to, that you feel is yours. You will protect your mother, your parents, and your siblings. And if you already left the house and a grown adult, you're going to protect your wife and your children. And you're going to want them to prosper and grow. And you pretty much do anything to do that. So imagine if somebody said, give up your family or that link. You look at them like they're crazy. And that's how we should feel about defining the we. But we don't feel that. We don't feel that. I know growing up, like I said, I'm from DC. And in DC, like pretty much any city in the United States, I'm sure it's the same everywhere. You grow up, and where you grow up, you get a sense of belonging. Like, I'm from Northwest DC. I grew up on Georgia Avenue, 7th Street, near Howard University. And if anybody from DC or familiar with DC, they'll know where I'm talking about. And that whole area, you had Bruce Monroe Elementary School right there. I'm just describing. I know people who don't know about DC. I'm just naming the school to you, but that whole block from Bruce Monroe Elementary School all the way down, pretty much to let's see, what street was that? I mean, going towards Howard University. You had Banneker, and all that right there. That whole area. That's where we used to play street. We used to play tag, right? I forgot what we called it, tag, where we could hide anywhere within that block range, and it'd be all of us, be a lot of us playing tag. And the last one, I mean, it would be one game that would last from the time it got dark until it's time for us to go in the house. One game, because that's how long it took to find everybody. But I'm just saying that to say that we all felt like that was our territory, our block. It was actually several blocks, but that was us. Can nobody mess with that? Nobody mess with us in there or nothing. And anything that wasn't like us stood out like a sore thumb. Anybody knew, anybody coming through, we knew who everybody was. We knew the parents knew us, everything. You go to the playground, you go to the basketball court, whatever, you knew everybody. Anybody knew or didn't belong, you can tell. And that's a sense of belonging. And if we grew up with that sense and that consciousness, we would, and we want something to grow and prosper, we would do anything to protect that and make it grow. but we're trained to get out of that. Like we split, we separate. I bet you nobody from my neighborhood in that neighborhood I just described still lives there. Probably a handful. Anyway, so that's a soapbox. Hold up, Tony Macaroni said, "Woo, I'm from 10th and M, Uptown." You can tell who was from what part of DC. Okay. Yep. I'm from Georgia Avenue, 7th Street. Yep, right there. All the way from Otis. You know, listen, I'm gonna name a place. So Tony, Marion Barry, yeah. Marion Barry. Listen, Marion Barry was the man. I don't care what any of y'all heard about Marion Barry. Marion Barry was the man. But anyway, I'm gonna name a place, the Black Hole. Only people from DC will know if I say the Black Hole, you know what I'm talking about. The Black Hole. I used to live right there near the Black Hole. Like, you know, kind of, sort of. The Black Hole. Celebrity Hall. They changed the name to Celebrity Hall. Anyway, all right, so we could change topics. I mean, unless somebody want to chime in on that, but I'm trying to, you know, I mean, unless somebody don't have another topic, we could keep it going.
Yeah, I wanted to add real quick with the chart that you were showing, but you know, just to kind of bring it back to Kemet and all that. It was interesting when you were showing that because you know, like I don't know if most people know about the onomasticon, but like for example, like the onomasticon of Amenope, but like how the Egyptians you know had created this list of, you know, like of order of, you know, how they arrange different things, like how they perceive different things in their world. And so then you have like the onomasticon where you have things listed in different categories, where, you know, you have the first category with things like that entails a list of of vocabulary for sky, water, and earth. And then you have the second you know, on a hierarchy, the second part where you have like gods or
But
divinities.
I think you're a little low because you unless
Oh,
I'm unless I'm
okay. Am I still low?
nah, there you go. Wow.
Okay. Okay. No, I was just saying that when you had your list of you know, the hierarchy of the different things in the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and all that, kind of reminded me of the onomasticon. And you know, and you know, and the onomasticons, we know them like they kind of like they were showing how the Egyptians categorized different things in their world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Okay, okay. I think you talking about the ostracons, the ostraca, and
no,
not
no, no, a strucker. What? I think it's
yeah.
onomasticon.
Okay.
Somebody can check and let me know. But yeah, so like the onomasticon of Amenope.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so you have like where they have you know, on the top list where they have things a list of vocabularies like of sky, water, and earth. And then on the second hierarchy, you know, you get like the deities and the kings, and then the different job titles like officials and whatnot. And then you have people in their occupation. I mean, yeah, that's where you have the officials with the people in their occupation, I think. And then you go down to like different classes of people and or tribes, you know, types of people. And then you have like yeah, and then it goes on and on, all the way to like agricultural stuff with the grains and whatnot. So that kind of reminded me of that, which kind of just shows that every culture, everything has a need to divide things like inclusion and exclusion.
Definitely. And yes, you're right. On the Mastercon, that's what they call it. I thought you were talking about, I thought you were saying the ostracon
No,
that where scribes were used
what I used to no.
for practicing. But no, that's absolutely correct. Yep. And the one in specific that you're talking about of Amen M Ipit, let's say Amenope, is a very good one because that's the sense of how, for example, Gardner classified the actual individual teat or glyphs themselves into these categories based on their likenesses. And so, for example, the category of M, as in Mary, are all of the glyphs that have to do with vegetation. And so the inclusionary rule is that it had to be some form of plant or vegetation. If it's not, then it's not included, it's excluded. And so the category of D are all human body parts and whatnot, and so on and so forth. N as a Nancy for sky, earth, water, and all that. So these are ways of categorizing things, and this is where you get into taxonomy and ontology. And this is why I always stress people to study both of those: taxonomy, ontology, semantics, pragmatics. You'll hear me chant those things, recommend all the time, because I'm telling you that just opens up the whole world to understand a lot more things. But that's actually a good one, the one that you brought up, because there's a list of a whole lot. There's a huge list, and it's broken up into groups, like you were saying. You have the I think the first group,
Sky, water, and earth, whatever.
okay, yeah. So you have those nature things: water, sky, earth. But then you have then the group after that is more of the administrative body of people, from the king on down. But on the administration, and then you have the regular lay folks, and then I think you have a bunch of toponyms, and things, and then so on. So I don't have them memorized, but yeah, that's a good
Since
one.
you say toponyms, crazy that they didn't mix the toponyms and the people together.
Right, exactly. That's interesting. But yeah, so anyway, listen, anybody in the chat, because I was wanting to look at the chat, make sure I'm not missing anybody's questions, because you know, um, I want people to walk away with any discussion that I'm a part of with some takeaways. So if I'm confusing, or if you think that I'm even full of it, the link is at the top. Click the link and share your thoughts. All right.
Yeah, but just not to go take it all back to what you're saying, but just to kind of like add clarity, because I know we've had these discussions other places, but maybe obviously not everybody that watches there watches here, and we might have some new people. I just wanted to add just as an example, because the examples are, kind of help people understand things that you were explaining, like especially like with the ADOS and Pan-Africanism and whatnot. And especially with that, you'll hear people talk about, bring Pan-Africanism into the equation, but you'll never hear, you'll never hear the same people bring Pan-Africanism into other African matters where different tribes are actually seeking for, their own reparations or their own justices, in that sense, the way that the people will be like, the same people will be like, bringing in Pan-Africanism into ADOS, because I think it's kind of what doesn't make sense to me. And obviously, just because I understand how, and I've lived, I'm from Africa and I'm from Kenya, and, I'm Luo, I have my own tribe, but then we live among other tribes. But then I kind of understand how it is sometimes where we need to separate issues that affect our tribe and doesn't affect other tribes. And other tribes, sometimes, they have their own issues that they need to deal with. Then sometimes we have to deal with things on a national level. And then if we are outside the country, or we have to deal with things that affect all of us as Black people, quote unquote. Within the country, sometimes we have to go beyond the borders and deal with things that affect our region, like the East African region. So for me, I'm kind of used to being able to function in all those different planes where they don't there is no this versus that. So when I see where most people come in and talk about ADOS and versus the Pan-Africanism, I don't think they understand that that those are two different discussions that should not be brought in together, and one does not really affect the other or go against the other. Just like when for example, like in Kenya, you had like when we were fighting for independence, and you had the Mau Mau especially fighting, that were actually on the forefront fighting against the British colonies and all that. And not it was I guess until recently where they were compensated, and that compensation had nothing to do with the rest of ours. That was specifically for the Mau Mau people, and nobody was I didn't see any other tribe or any other group of people trying to say, why are these people seeking to get compensation? What about us? like it's just understood that there are certain things that affect other people, and sometimes things exclude that, for example, people in group A, and sometimes it includes those people, but you kind of have to know when or you function, when things function in what plane. But with the ADOS and the Pan-Africanism, it's kind of like, that's where I see people don't understand what ADOS kind of what they are trying to push forward, and it has nothing to do with Pan-Africanism. And actually, it seems a little bit odd that most of the people who will be against that are actually people who are very comfortable in their own other outside groups, like being an immigrant. Where you come from, so you're swimming in a good territory where you can actually define yourself outside of what the ADOS people are seeking to do, to define for themselves and get their reparations. That has nothing to do with those people. But the people who fight hard against that are people who actually are very comfortable in their own other identification classes, as opposed to this other group of people. And then those same people will not do the same thing when it concerns other African groups that do the same thing when they're fighting for their own separate things that does not include all African people on the continent. I think that's just hypocritical.
All right, and that's a good way to kind of put a little round off on that topic. That's it. So anybody has anything else? Because I mean, there's nothing really to come after that.
I wanted to say too, on your point about Black Power. Somebody screaming Black Power to me is semi-retarded, because saying Black Power is like having a bag of concrete, a wheelbarrow, and water in front of you, and screaming concrete mix, and tightening your fist and throwing it up in the air and saying concrete mix. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to, as long as you stand there and scream. But I think they get that from, the 60s movement with the Black Panthers. But as I recall, the Black Panthers was saying power to the people.
Yeah.
And they actually, had like programs for kids, and they were up on the law. They were trying to really establish themselves as a political party, not just somebody standing in one place, screaming a slogan or something.
Right. And that's important, because power is with the people if the people are properly defined. That's it right there. Power is with the people, not in a color, and not a misunderstanding of a social construct that has color labels that have nothing to do with actual colors, which is what Black is. All right. So, we got to get it together. And so anyway, so yeah. So I guess the takeaway from that point though, is that, and even as I say this, I'm got to use the word we, the quote unquote we, have to definitively define the we. And in that newfound definition of we, there's where we'll have the beginning of power. That's it. And I don't mean just to define we. We know we is a first person singular first person plural pronoun. We know what the word we is, but I'm talking about the referent. What does the we actually refer to? Because it's a pronoun. And you can never, here's the thing, you can never start a story off with pronouns, because the reader or listener will have no clue to who you're talking about. And that's what I mean when I say there's no power until the we is defined, because we're starting a story with a pronoun. If I just say to y'all right now, he went to the store, you have no idea what that pronoun is. And technically, we call it an antecedent. You don't know what the antecedent is to that pronoun. You don't know what the referent is. You don't know who I'm talking about. So it becomes very vague and not useful. All you know is somebody went to the store. He went to the store. You see, so that's just to give another example of what I mean. You have to properly identify and distinguish. And we got to be precise. We have to be precise. Power comes from precision. It's very, very precise. Vagueness has leaks, approximations, and this and that. Now you want that surgical, defined, sharp precision. Trust me, if you ever have to go to the hospital to get operated on, you want that person that's holding that scalpel and performing the procedure to be very precise and very surgical. You don't want them to be just guessing and approximating and this and that. No. And to fix our problems, we better become surgeons, figuratively speaking.
Yeah. I was saying what the Sharab was writing. Yes to reparations, big no to ADOS. I was just gonna say that when we started the show, you know how we were talking about who was it that it was Tiaka. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes,
Tiaka?
you are.
Okay,
You are.
Tiaka. Yeah, because when Tiaka came in and was talking about, he just found out he was Fulani. You notice, like, I'm not saying that that's what you did, but how the discussion usually goes, and like you have this where we everybody's like proud of all the different the identities they have within the African continent. You could be Fulani, you could be Maasai, you could be Zulu and all that, and everybody has pride in that, and people like to study that and find out about all these different tribes and their cultures and whatnot. So, but then people will be proud and accept that that there are there are distinctions and very, very precise identification markers for people on a continent. But then once that is translated onto like African Americans on America, then you'll be like, no, you can't do that. You can't identify yourself as a tribe. So that's kind of hypocritical, because either you want you're proud of all these identifications that Black people have all around the world, or you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want this to spiral into a conversation on the validity of ADOS. So don't get misconstrued. If anybody wants to have that conversation, we could do that, but another time. Because that's the validity of, because I'm reading Dasharab or Dash Arab comment, yes to reparations, big no to ADOS. And see, comments like that though is we just gotta have a better understanding, because if that's the takeaway from what I said when I actually brought that up, then there's a disconnect right there, because the point is that everybody, let's just narrow it to America, the United States of America. Everyone in the United States of America that self-identifies as Black or are called Black by others are not the same. Period. That's just it. There are people with that are under different circumstances for different reasons, and so in order to execute action, you have to have proper definitions. And I don't mean definitions of words. I'm talking about proper identity, proper what do you call it? Demarcations, distinctions, delineate things. And that's all that I'm saying, is that you have people around the globe that would be called Black or even self-identify as Black. That is a global flat Blackness. Look at the continent of Africa. The majority of people on the continent of Africa would comfortably be described as that flat Black. They're Black in the sense that we use the word Black. But yet you go on the continent of Africa within that ocean of blackness, there are distinctions, and there are people who will tell you in a heartbeat that they're distinct from other Black people that are also on the continent. The Kikuyu are distinct from the Luo, who are distinct from the Maasai. And they're all Kenyans. But they're distinct enough to identify with that distinction. So they have this umbrella of being a Kenyan, but then they have, within that umbrella, they have a distinction, and they're okay with that. They're proud of that. But here in the United States of America, for some odd reason, we can't do that. And any notion of trying to do that, you got people who will say things like dash Arab, no to ADOS and stuff like that. That's what I'm saying. Like that's just a issue and a problem. So listen, the link is pinned up, and dash Arab. You come, you're more than welcome to come on the, in the chat and everything, all you like. So I don't want you to think that you're not welcome on the chat. But listen, you've been here enough to be able to click the link. So, I'm gonna start to think that, you are purposely not coming on for some other reasons. All right.
He's
So
not ready.
yeah, you're not coming on here to chime in for some other reasons. You hey,
Trolling.
have y'all seen like, I'm sure everybody's seen that the cartoon Scooby-Doo. Everybody seen Scooby-Doo?
Yeah,
Everybody's
yeah.
familiar with Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, at the end of every episode of Scooby-Doo, they're trying to solve the mystery, right? And at the end of every show, they solve the mystery, the person behind the ghost and stuff like that. And they always take the mask off or whatever, and it end up being somebody that you already saw in the cartoon.
Oh no. Right.
So I'm telling you, Dash Arab is gonna be that Scooby-Doo scenario. Dash Arab don't want to come on here because it's gonna be like, whoop, oh, let's see who it is behind.
That's why he don't want to hit the link.
Because we're going to know.
Somebody you know.
immediately.
Watch. And I could be wrong, but I'm saying it because the link has been there every show, every episode. Anyway, so listen, this is bring your own BYOT, bring your own topic. So I see a few people jumped on. So we can move off that topic. But I appreciate that question, Tiaka, because that kind of made that whole hour. That was a whole hour right there.
Yeah, you flow with that one.
That was a whole hour. I try to link it though, because of our channel and what we do in to Kemet. And so to kind of top off that, I guess for a last and final time, is this notion, because you brought up tribalism, right? So this notion, like Kemet, was not a homogeneous population of people, but they knew enough, and we can actually learn from this. They knew enough that there was levels to it, and at the upper levels, they knew that they were unified. But when you come down, like I showed on the diagram, when you come down, they did have distinctions. And so what they did in Kemet, at all times in Kemet, at the entire life of Kemet, they saw their unified kingdom as a duality at its most core component. It could be what do you call it, divisible down to two. And so you had these two major things, nothing less than that. And so you had Ta Mehu and Ta Shemau, which was the delta and then the valley. And so that's why they called it Tawi, which is a dual form of the word Ta, which is a word that in this context means region. Just like we say the Middle East. Like there's no such country as the Middle East, but the Middle East is understood to be a region of geography of land. And so in Egypt, they saw their kingdom as being divided into two regions. And the two regions was based on the ecology of its surroundings. So you had this sea level flatness that was very moist, swampy, and so on. We know as the delta. And then you had this more narrow, drier strip that was very long called the valley, Tashimau, and the other one, Tamehu. Another one was more elevated in altitude and elevation, terrain, and the other one was at sea level. And so we when sea level we call it lower, and the one that was higher in elevation is upper. So we have upper Kemet and lower Kemet, and that was it. So I'm saying that to say that you had the distinctions, but people understood where the unity actually was. And the United States is built around the same principle. The United States of America has 50 distinct states with their own sovereignty, with a very small percentage of sovereignty relinquished to become a member of a union, a federal union. And so at the level of at the federal level, it's united. But once you go below that, there's 50 distinctions. The state of Georgia, I'm in Georgia. The state of Georgia is different than the state of Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York. New York laws do not apply in Georgia, and vice versa. Two different jurisdictions. But at the federal level, it's united. Likewise in Kemet. You had Tawi, Semitawi with unification. Then you had Tashmao, Tamehu, Tameri, Taseti, and all of that good stuff. And then even within that, you had 22 gnomes and 20 gnomes, making 42 different Sapat or gnomes, as they later were called. So people understood all this stuff back then. But anyway, so I just want to kind of cap it off with that.
Right.
And they didn't have a social construct of the same criteria of human categorizations as we do today. They didn't do things based on skin color. Culture is king. Culture has always been king. And within culture, language is king.
Did slavery exist in Egypt?
Yep.
Okay. Since its inception?
I don't know since its inception, but slavery existed in Kemet. Yep.
Slavery exists everywhere.
Yep. Slavery exists just about in every culture. Now, if we want to drill down and start to define the different types of slavery, then that's a different conversation. But the general idea of slavery pretty much existed in all cultures. Yep. So now, we could start describing and defining, because you have, captured, you have people who were enslaved as a result of war, fighting, and things like that. And so we can get into the details of it. But in general, yeah. Yep. So that's that. See, and that a question like that question right there was a question of an entire debate. And that's how come, I used to have a nickname of the debate killer, because I'll just answer a question and eliminate the need to debate. And that's not fun. So I kill the fun. Because people want to fight. Oh, there was no slavery in Kemet. Yes, there was. And then we'll get into anything. Well, there was no chattel slavery versus, the other kind of slavery and this and that. I'm like, man, kill all that noise. There was slavery in Kemet. Next. I mean, next, So, yep. But I do know one thing, though. Sakir Ung does not mean bound for life, though. I will keep saying that. Doesn't mean bound for life. People don't understand that the word unk, and that's another thing. I don't know if people who are watching now heard that when we were talking about that. Unk, the word unk. There is no the word unk. You know, there are several words unk, not the word unk. And so there's a word unk that means there's a series of words unk that deal with restricting movement. Okay, I'm gonna put it like that. And the words that follow that line are all words that we would say as unk. So you hear us say it all the same way, but they're different words, but it's along the same semantic scope of restricting movement. So what are those words? It's a word unk that means oath, to take an oath. Now, how does that tie into restricting movement? Well, an oath is the act of binding your words. You are binding your words to something. That is a contract. And so you're restricting the movement of your words. So your words are confined and stamped. And that's it. There's another word unk that means that's a word for document. Now, how does that tie into restriction? Well, the way that the documents were in ancient times and antiquity is that they were written on papyri. Papyri were rolled up. And if you did not bind it or tie it, it would unroll and fall and be flimsy and fall all over the place. So there's a word unk that means document in the sense of that which is bound or restricted from its movement or being loose. So that's two. What else? There's another word unk that means sandal strap. The straps on the sandals of antiquity. Why does that have to do with bound or bind? Because the actual rope on the sandals bound the material on the bottom of your foot to your ankle so it won't fall off. That's it. So they don't mean life. Everybody thinks, well, a lot of people think that the word unk means life, and that's it. Anyway, I just wanted to show that example. So we got to be careful with all that. But anybody else?
I can see that second example meaning contract too.
Yes. Yeah. Contract. Yeah. Definitely. But that's what I mean by a contract to bind. You're binding somebody's word. And so prior to writing, you couldn't sign a contract to bind. You had to say your word is your bind. Or we say it today as, instead of word, my word is my bind, we say word is bond. My word is bound or bond to something. Take me for my word. Are you as good as your word? Yes, I am. And so you have verbal agreements that forms contracts. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And that's what an oath is. And an oath is a verbal contract. And it manifests when it's used in initiatory systems, which have a physical, visible expression of it, of doing something so people can visibly see your oath, your contract. So, which usually involves the shaving of your hair off your head, eyebrows, wherever. Sometimes people get scarred up a bit on their face, their arms, the chest, or whatever the case is. These are normal or traditional forms of visible expressions of oaths, of contracts, contract to your community. And that's what that is. So in the Greek fraternities of college, you get people get branded. They get, to shave their hair off. They do all these kinds of things. In initiatory systems on the continent, you see people get shalooks on their face, their arms, called scarification. They shave their head. their hair, their head, and they do certain things to visibly or manifest the fact that you're binded into a contract. Those are unks. So the idea of wearing a unk or carrying around an unk, people have got it twisted. People think that literal unks were walked around and carried around made of metal. No. You walk around with an unk. The act of walking around with an unk is actually the fact that you are holding true to your bond, to your oath. That's what walking around with an unk actually is and means, is that you're loyal to your oath. You're holding up your end of the bargain. That is to carry around an unk. Not to get some not to carry around a copper unk that looks very nice and everything. That's not it. That can represent it, in terms of representation. But that right there is not it, though. All right. So anyway, so we got Chris, we got Donnie, we got Emicat, June, Kadeem, Lisa, Mika, Tiarka on the panel. We got people in the chat. If y'all have any questions or want to get involved with the conversation. But I want to say, so there was a couple of lives going on. So I know Dr. Ma'at, she had Judge Joe Brown on her channel, and Judge Joe Brown, although I may not agree with everything he says, what I do observe about him is that he's good at giving commentary about social evolution. And so I'll leave it there. But anyway, Dr. Ma'at had him on her show earlier. I know there was a debate that went on, so I didn't see it. So maybe somebody that saw it can kind of tell us the outcome, like what you thought about it, or whatever the case is. I know Asari Motep was live or is live about the importance of marriage. I believe topic. So there was a lot of lives going on today, simultaneous at the same time, really. So anybody see the debate? Because that was an actual event style debate where you paid and actually watched it. What was the
and they actually did better than any debate I've seen. Like, I actually saw how people really debate. So that was kind of interesting. It was different. How it went, I'm not really into the Jesus thing, but it was just,
Well, wait a minute. What was the actual debate topic? Was there a single topic? Like what was the umbrella topic? What was that?
Did Jesus really exist?
Oh, okay.
So I was just supporting.
Okay, so did Jesus exist? So obviously we have a person who think he did, and then a person who think he didn't. Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And they just, they point. But I'm not into the Jesus thing, like I said. But I was just supporting. But I saw the method on how they debate, which was, interesting to me.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. Like I said, I didn't see it, but if that's the case, that's good, because debating that I've seen on these platforms is, and everybody knows me, I'm quick to say that that's not real debating. That's not the best fussing. I come from a background of debating, so I know what a debate actually is and what it looks like. And so if that's what you were saying, that how that went down, then that's definitely steps in the right direction. And I bet you it did. And see, here's the thing though. How long is that really gonna be attractive though? Because people get used to the fussing and the drama and stuff and everything. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be it's good. We're gonna see.
Well, I'm hoping people will learn like how this is how you really debate. The other way is not right. So I'm hoping people will learn like there's different ways. And when you come into the so-called conscious community, you see stuff and you think that's how it is, but until you know better, so we'll find out.
The brother Aziz put a so Aziz, if you I know there's a slight delay when you're gonna hear me, but I have a question. So I see that you put in the chat the word unk for oath, and then the word linsha, if I'm pronouncing that right, and I probably butchered that pronunciation, but that also means oath. But what two like what well we know one is Ronnie Kemet. What's the other language? What's the lex the word that you're using from what language that means oath? Because I'm assuming that you've done all the work and you're saying that that's like they're cognizant of each other. So by the time you hear me say all this, be looking for your answer.
Yeah, I already jumped in before. So,
Huh?
now I was saying I thought I saw Aziz on the panel. So if if you come back in and share again. I'm guessing probably because he does Wolof, right?
Oh yeah, it's probably Wolof. Oh yeah, but I want to make sure. I don't want to assume. So yeah, but anybody got something else? So that's cool. So Mika, that's good. If that but let me ask you this: if you saw the debate, right? What like who do you feel prevailed in demonstrating what their whatever their premises were and claims?
They both demonstrated the claim. It's just that what you agree with, I guess. So yeah, with that, because it was, I would have to watch it over again too, because I was like doing other stuff. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Well, that's good that it was formatted or structured a lot better. That's good. That's what I'm on. I mean, that's what I advocate. If you're gonna call anything a thing, then let it be what that thing is. Like, stop calling a driveway because we don't drive on a driveway. People park like, we need to call a driveway a parkway and a parkway a driveway. Those are the two famous misnomers. I just can't stand misnomers. Man, I just do not like them. If y'all don't know that already, because I always mention it, I do not like misnomers. Stop calling fussing matches a debate. Let a debate be a debate. Let a fussing match be a fussing match. And it's okay to like fussing matches. Like, I don't understand why people feel like they gotta disguise something as something else just to run the excuse of dealing with it.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
So technically to you, was the Lefkowitz and Dr. Clark, was that in your definition of debate?
Yeah, that was definitely more of a debate. It was moderated. Each side had a clear claims that they were making. They were allotted, the ability to support their claims, demonstrate their claims. Now, to that degree, it depends on how it was styled and set up. But how that was set up, that's actually how similar how debates are done. That's definitely falls in the category of actual debating. Because at the core, listen, the goal of a debate, though, the goal of the idea of debate, the word debate itself comes from a word that means to beat down, to hammer down. And you're hammering something to expose its guts, to be able to discern, and figure things out, problem solve. And so that's the end game. That's the goal. Now, to get there, you have to have certain methods in place to allow that process to happen. So if your debate topic is real vague and iffy to allow people to move the goalposts, at the 20-yard line, and then next minute the goalpost is at the 50-yard line, you're not going to reach your end game of getting to the reality, getting to the truth of something. So any structure that doesn't even properly define a debating topic or something that is actually defined enough to where it could be, you know, falsified or whatever the case is, I mean, you already killed yourself at the beginning. And I remember this is a debate, a so-called debate that I would have been a part of, about the hieroglyphs being deciphered. And I remember that the arguments and claims kept changing. It was real foggy and vague. And so for clarification, I went straight to it. And I asked the question of, are we talking about translation or are we talking about decipherment? And a lot of people didn't know the difference between the two because the way it was used was interchangeably. And I'm like, no, we got to clear that up before you're going to attempt to debate something, you know. So when I did that, presented that kind of changed the fun. I took the fun out of it a little bit. And so I got kind of shut down for asking that question, because I was going to spoil the fun, so to speak. But I did that because a real debate, you have to clearly define your debate question or questions, a series, because one can lead to another. You know, you may have an overall question, but then you may have sub questions that spin off of it, but they have to be very, very clear. You know, and you have to identify or avoid logical fallacies that are committed and things. But that's the job of a debater during a debate, if you want to point those fallacies out, because that hurts your argument. You know, so now where I come from on debating team, we had to learn and memorize all of the logical fallacies. We actually had to identify them if committed, and then we had to learn how to commit them. We had to learn it from both ends, because remember, the goal is not to win per se. The goal is to get to the truth, get to the reality of the question. You know, and so that's really it. So the benefit is really the audience and everybody getting to closer to the truth, as opposed to the you know, the more narrow who won. Like, okay, this person won. Now you can prevail in your arguments and you could demonstrate, support the evidence, and it's superior to the other person's claims and methods and so on and so forth. And in that sense, yes, you prevailed, you won. But the bigger picture is that everybody wins. Everybody's supposed to win at a debate in the bigger scheme. Because why? Because everybody is closer to the truth. Yep. See, we got Asar in how he said, quit hating on misnomers. Man, I cannot stand misnomers. Man. Like right now, my car is parked in a parkway. I don't care what y'all say. I park on a parkway. I don't have a driveway. There's no driveways. There's no driveways around here. There's driveways is I-20, I-95, you know, I-85. Those are driveways. Yep. Can't stand misnomers. No, sir. But yeah, anybody else have a topic? All right, so we've been on 2 hours. So, you know, let's cover one more topic. Somebody just bring your BYOT, bring your own topic.
Yeah, before we do that,
I'm sorry.
No, so before we do that, Sen Aziz had some issues with his microphone. I don't know if you can speak now.
Y'all can hear me?
Oh
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm over here cooking. I'm surprised y'all hear this grease popping.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, so I was asking you about those two words. So I was saying that there's a word unk that means oath, and you know, and the idea behind an oath, you know, I explained that it's to bind your words, right? You bind your words. It's a contract, as Tiarka said. Tiarka, it's a contract. It's the binding of words, an oath.
Yeah.
And everything. So anyway, yeah. So you were saying, but go ahead. So you were saying that you gave the Wolof.
Oh yeah, because in Wolof it's like a reflex. It seems I know Asar talked a lot about how that that A, the how we transliterate the A in the manual decodage, in Wolof it comes out as an L sometimes. So, like you said, a binding in Wolof, that's lonk, which means to bind.
Mm-hmm.
But another variant of that is lunk, which means it can mean really, but it's also a word for oath. So that's why I put it in the chat for real.
Okay. Yeah, I know you work with Woloffs, but I just didn't want to assume that when you gave those two words. So no, that's good. And so that's an example. That's just one example. So for those who are listening and may have a question, because I don't see this question come up as much now, but I know that used to be asked a lot, was how do we know that the dictionaries are correct? And so what I used to always answer, like in a nutshell, is, for the most part, I mean, a dictionary has a laundry list of terms. And so whenever we run into any question or stumbling block or something that is maybe off, we have tools available to us that we can look further. And one of the major tools of that would be historical comparative linguistics, where you would compare two or more related languages for sound meaning correspondence that you've established that have sound meaning correspondences, and you look for what's called cognates. And then you can kind of dig deeper to fact check dictionaries. And so we have these tools available now. Are we going to do that for every single word in every dictionary? I would love to have the time and money to do that, but as far as a need to do basis, we have that ability. So like when we run into something that's questionable, we can resort to that. And I see Asar just jumped on here, and I know Asar, that's one of Asar's major tools is historical comparative linguistics, as a tool to that end. So I see Asar, like I said, Asar jumped in here. Maybe you can well, I don't want to turn into a whole explanation on historical comparative linguistics, but specifically, Aziz brought up the word. Say it again, Aziz, in Wolof.
The word ankh in ancient Egyptian, I'm proposing has a variant in Wolof. At least the version to swear or an oath has a variant in Wolof with lunk. It's like LENX or KHA. And the L is cognate to the what is it, the D41, the extended arm glyph.
Arm.
Okay.
And he was mentioning to bind. I wish I could pull something up, but so lunk is to bind.
You about to pull up your frying pan with all the grease popping everywhere.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, so the point, the point, I guess the point I'm making now, and we can kind of tackle this point, this topic, and then this be the last topic. But the question when I was asked in the past about once everybody couldn't prevail and win over the argument of whether the glyphs have been deciphered, the writing system been deciphered or not. Once everybody kind of ate that L, then everybody kind of switched over to, well, they switched to two things. They start talking about pronunciation. Oh, well, y'all not pronouncing it, the way that the ancient Egyptians did. And so I'm like, okay. And yeah, we acknowledge that. Like, okay. And then it's like, how do you know that the words even mean what they mean? So here we are. So I'm saying that, during
that reminds me of when the debates were going on. Has the Medew Netcher been deciphered and all that stuff?
Yeah.
And I remember Seti saying stuff like, how How do y'all know? How do y'all know the words are right? How do y'all know that the white man hasn't jumbled all the words up in the dictionary? We're just
Exactly. And
reading
that's
a bunch of BS. But if we're finding lists of words that, for the most part, sometimes have kept the same form and the same meaning in not only just one language, but different languages. I mean, what are we going to say that the white man just created all the African dictionaries and all the African words and all the African
it's
languages?
a big conspiracy.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. From that noisy mess that would have been a debate. The outcome of that is people realized that they took a L, and then the focus turned on to, you know, pronunciations, and then how do you know the dictionaries are right? And so that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the short answer is that we have tools. One prominent being historical comparative linguistics, where we can actually check against related African languages that have been established. The sound meaning correspondences have been established for their relationships and the proximities to where we can start looking for these things. And, you know, so anyway, so that's why I wanted. So sorry, I don't know if you could shed a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, I wanted to just briefly share something. And I guess y'all would have to give me permission. I don't know how it works on Zoom.
Oh, really? All right, hold on, let me see. Do I have to?
Well, I need to find it first. We'll just find an example. Let me.
All right, so I'm just gonna do this for a second so you can share, because I don't know how I have this set up right now. I had to set this up in the future. Take that off. I think I got sharing restricted.
Let me. So, for example, I'll just pick a random.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I thought you were looking for the share button.
Where is share screen?
You can share the app or share the whole screen or whatever.
Is my yeah? I'll just share that.
And I could tell by the way you looked, I could tell you the kind of person that got a whole bunch of apps running at the same time.
Look, I just ended the show, so that's why. Like, so I don't know if y'all can see clearly on the. Let me just reduce that little thingy. I don't even know if y'all can see that for those to share, and I'll increase this so it comes a little clearer. But yeah, so that's I think that's part of the question that stumbled. What's his name? Sarah Sutanseti when we was having that debate. Because I'm like, if the ancient Egyptian had not been deciphered, it would be impossible to have regular sound meaning correspondences between Egyptian and other languages. And, you know, so this is just a common slide that I would share, you know, like in Proto-Bantu, Sumerian, and Egyptian, which I call Chicam. And so you can see where Proto-Bantu has the T sound. In Sumerian, it has the sh sound. And in Egyptian, it has either the T or the ch, the T with the underline sound. And where Proto-Bantu has ng in the second consonant position, Sumerian has R or a G type sound, either G or ng itself, which is represented with a G for the Sumerian, the G with the, I forgot what you call that over it, you know, that kind of tilde or whatnot. And so, you know, when you have, for example, tanga, mat, sail, and then shar, clothing designation, this may not seem like a close match, but when you come into Egyptian, you see this root here for fabric, you know, mummy binding, sail, curtain. So we can surmise, for example, that the original word was actually a cloth designation. It was a type of fabric. And then the Proto-Bantu expanded on the meaning to mean sail or mat, which we can see here reflected in Egyptian. And then, so we go here, we see regularly T again, sh, but this time the second consonant is dropped here for this word for basket. But here, the ch sound and the nasalized uvular trill in the second consonant position, which I have the correspondences over here, is a receptacle, a box, or a basket. So it you know, looking at this word actually, how should I say, was probably just any kind of receptacle, you know, like a box or a basket, and it just solidified in Sumerian and Proto-Bantu as a basket. But I'll go down further, and so for you have, for example, Tangu in Proto-Bantu, house, ground, wall. And then you have Sig, place, or Zig, town, center. And then here you have, you know, Ter, meaning land, earth, ground, or country. And so we know, for example, via the work of, what's his name, Jean-Claude Mboli and others, that the word for land becomes the word for place and home in African languages. So this is how we know we can equate these two. And so you can do this all, you know, you can confirm these correspondences. So for example, we see that the nasalized uvular trill in Egyptian corresponds to the second consonant position, ng. And so even when we switch words with different first consonants, we see the same correspondence. So this word in Proto-Bantu, binga, horn, is nber in Egyptian for horn, and this n is a prefix here. And ibongo, ni, which would be Mariset, ni of human, hawk of animal. And so this S here is actually a suffix of body parts, and so is the suffix T in Egyptian. And but you see in the second consonant position, the same sound corresponds. And this J is also a body part suffix. And so in languages, you can have multiple prefixes and suffixes for body parts. And Bantu is really known for that. But if it had not been deciphered, it would be impossible to come up with these types of correspondences that we see here. And lastly, I just wanted to, if I can find the word, I'll just probably do an advanced search for this. Oop, I misspelled that. Can't misspell. You mentioned the word Ankh, and in the text, and this is, and what I'm showing is from Aluja Volume 2 for those who, and I don't have my physical book on me, but I show in the text that the word Ankh itself is,
it's see, you have oath right there.
Where?
You promised on that grid right there.
Next one up.
Okay. Oh yeah, to swear. And in Egyptian is hanga. And so this N corresponds to H, because this what Brother Aziz said is a lowercase a when we transliterate the arm glyph. That's a prefix, and I wanted to show that that is a prefix even in Egyptian. But so for in Bantu, you know, to swear an oath is hanga, and this is Proto-Bantu, hanga, you know, a promise, a vow. And you know what we're saying is Ankh here is captive, literally a bound one, and hanga, so you can see the same match here, to tie up, to fix into. So you know, And so you can actually say that these two words here are built from the same root. But anyway, so there's the word ankh meaning the sun in the form of a beetle. And then we have in Bantu hanga meaning to shine intensely of the sun. And I show in other areas where the word for sun derives from a root meaning to shine. And so you can see from this fundamental root is where we get the word for anku, stars, anket, saying fire, etc. And so we even have, sa'ank, create a sculpture, to sculpt, hanga, to create, but I wanted to show that, and I wish is it in, I'm sorry. Here we go. Well, yeah, it's in this area. Let me just see. So I'm showing here that the N sound. So what did you say it pronounced as? It sounds like in
Wolof,
Aziz, in Wolof, for the
lunk,
word to swear.
lunk.
Lunk. So I would argue that, in Wolof, you're missing the lowercase a prefix, and that L corresponds to what is in this dialect is N, and which is in this dialect, the nasalized uvular trill, right? So you have Inki, a snake, and then Aket, a Uraeus, diadem. Inket, strong, power, victory. We say Aku, power, mastery. Going down, Inki, chop, cut. And then it has a suffix here, which nominalizes and makes it a knife. And so in this form here, it's the same word, different prefix. All of these are prefixes, because what I argue is that Egyptian is a monosyllabic language, meaning that its roots is one consonant vowel combination, and then everything else is prefixes and suffixes. That's another conversation. But I demonstrate here that even this, what we're saying is h in terms of pronunciation, also corresponds internally to B, which means it'll also correspond to M as well. So you have nick, or knock, however you want to pronounce it, massacre, butcher. And then haneb, this is a prefix, slaughter, neck, to protect, to help, neb, to protect. And so this is what I ultimately demonstrate, because this is on seneb. So this is on, I'm arguing that the word seneb comes from a root neb, meaning to hit, and that the S is a prefix. And so we can see the same here. The words for snake ultimately come from a word meaning to coil in the language. And so, this is a partial reduplication in this form here, nekin, net, a bird, and it's eneb, a bird, in here. And so what I show is that the arm glyph, transliterated as a lowercase a, corresponds internally as S in the language, and that neb is the root and ink is the root here. So like in for example, in Ghana, this word here would be nkwa. It's the same thing in Kikongo, nkwa, for life, but they're missing this prefix here, which is also it's an S here. So when you talk about life, unk, life, is cognate is seneb, air, breath. Unk, live, be alive. Seneb, to be alive. Anket, fire. Seneb, to burn, because it all comes from to shine, fire, to burn. It's the same root, neb. And I give further examples previously. Unk, a garland. Seneb, a plant. Unk, sandal strap. Seneb, cord, twine. Ankh, container in the shape of a hieroglyph. And remember that the original Ankh in the Egyptian hieroglyphs was a tied piece of rope. And so that's where you get like to bind, to a captive, because it comes from a verb meaning to tie, and then in the nominal form it means a rope or a cord. And so I give examples previously to that. Container in the shape of a hieroglyph. Senebet, a jar. The inundation. And so instead of the prefix here, the normal S, they reduplicate it, meaning to bring forth the inundation, et cetera, et cetera. And so so you see the Ankh is breath, to the nose, but you can see, for example, Neketu, captives, hostage, and then Ankh, captive. Neket, a snake, Ankh, a snake. Neck, partial reduplication here. This is supposed to be Nick, a star, and then Anku, stars. And so when you're comparing in the whatever African languages, you have to understand Egyptian, really well, and to know what is a prefix and what is a suffix, so you know what to compare in the other languages. So primarily you would be comparing these two, these two graphemes corresponding to some phonemes in the language, with whatever language that you're comparing. And so you got to know that,
that actually makes sense, because a lot of the words that I do propose as cognates, the prefixes are the most unstable part. Like there's just a few patterns that just show that that makes sense though.
And the biggest takeaway is that would be completely impossible if the writing system was not deciphered.
Exactly.
So yeah, but so sorry, you just hopped on, but prior to even showing that, I had talked about like how we even came on the topic of the word Ankh was I was saying that people are under the impression, many people who just unaware, they're under the impression that when you say a word, that's the only word that exists. So like the word Ankh, they say the word Ankh, as if there is the word Ankh. And I was saying that there is no such thing as the word Ankh. There are several words that we end up pronouncing as the word Ankh, or may transliterate similar in the same way, et cetera, et cetera. So I was going through the list of the different semantic fields, and I was saying there's one for tying and binding, one for life, and so on and so forth. So what you showed was showing that, and with internal cognates, actually, with the SNP. So I mean, none of this could be done if the hieroglyphs have not been deciphered. So that argument, and that's where the frustration comes in, that for that to come up, if it comes up now, people should appreciate the frustration now, because it's like, listen, I'm gonna have time for that.
That's old.
Exactly. So, but yeah, so I appreciate that demonstration, and hopefully everybody watching can see that just demonstrated my point of the tool that's accessible in questions like that. Obviously, we're not going to go through the 80,000 words in the dictionary unless somebody wants to form a full-time job, gives a grant. Some institution to do something like that. That's a big project, but I mean, the tools are available when needed. When in doubt, we can utilize those tools. So that's excellent. But real quick, I mean, we've been on for 2 hours, and I was just wanted to wrap it up. But anybody have any quick share, or any anything that's going on? Any topic? This is the BYOT. Bring your own topic. But
I was gonna say something for real. We were talking earlier about how people focus on the race of the Egyptians so much, and how we focus on race so much, period. But it's almost like that's an indication of, you know, the ways that we forget how we relate to one another, if that's making any sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but see, boy, you about to open up a whole nother. I gotta refrain myself because I'm gotta end this. You about to kick up the dust right there with the race thing. But I mean, to what you're saying, like I just blanketly say that the ancient Egyptians, if we're being specific to them, they didn't have in their consciousness itself our modern social construct of race. And so when we project it back there on them, we're missing. We're missing the mark. And not only that, but to focus on that and to make it a debate for 6 decades, for over 60 years to debate that, that's setting us back. And it, to me, it's a sign of ignorance. You know, it's a sign of just us being stagnant, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's what I say in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot to say about that, but you know, whether they're black or not, why can't the Egyptians just be the Egyptians? And let's tap into the genius, like you know, this notion, this desire for us. I mean, I understand it though, but there's consequences to it. But there's a desire to make everything black. King James black,
Abraham Lincoln.
is black, Australians black. Everybody needs to be black, you know. And I just think that that's very, very shallow. We got bigger fish to fry. I mean, it's so much to learn from that we can use from Egypt as a resource. All of these cultures, if we just turn it as a library or resource, like a mine, and just use it and extract resources to solve our problems today, man, we would be better, much better.
And
that's
we
really
got to
the
understand the different missions as well. So, for example, like doing the comparative work that an example was given earlier, you understand. See, the problem with ancient Egypt is that, of course, it's not a living culture. So we can't go to the modern Egyptians and really get any insight by way of continuity of the culture. And so while we can get some things from reading the text, there's those little nuances that don't allow for us to fully get everything, right? But we can get some insight if we discover the same phenomenon, cultural and intellectual phenomena, in other African cultures that utilize the same rituals and the same words to articulate the same phenomena. Mm-hmm. And so by looking at the modern cultures, we can actually go back now to the ancestral culture that gave rise to both the Wolof, the Chiluba, the ancient Egyptian, for example. So now you're getting insight into the underlying culture and thought process that gave birth to the expressions that you see in ancient Egypt. And you can see how they manifested among the Wolof people and, for example, the Chiluba people, to keep it consistent in terms of my examples.
Yeah.
And so that is another aspect of the journey of the study of ancient Egypt.
Right. And
is to get better, is to help us even understand the African, especially for those of us in the diaspora who, as a result of the transatlantic slave holocaust, have not been able to directly trace our immediate ancestry outside of, going into the late 1800s, and just wondering, who our great grandparents were and what languages they spoke, and how they saw the world and things of this nature. And so what we tend to do is to try to go through the historical records and to see what survivals exist amongst the modern cultures, and to give us some insight into ourselves. But we can even go further by including cultures like the ancient Egyptians and what survives amongst the Nubian cultures. And when we find those similarities that we can defend scientifically, by using proper methodology, and we can make those arguments. So now it's not only that we're just studying ancient Egypt for its insights. Now we can build on in terms of relations, and then we can actually build on the project that Sheikh Hansi Diop was had put forth for us to continue, and that is to write a more accurate African historical narrative that links, based upon what evidence survives, all of the people and cultures. That was always one of his biggest aims, to write a more complete and accurate story of Africa itself, which would have to include, of course, ancient Egypt, and then you go into ancient Ghana and Songhai, and go back further amongst the folks in the Sahara.
That's me. Is that me?
I'm sorry.
Oh no, I don't know if that was just me or if everybody saw you breaking up a bit.
Oh, I was breaking up.
No, I think it was fine.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I heard perfect.
You got that bootleg Sarah Sutton internet connection.
I got that crick. I got
non-deciphered
cricket wire
internet connection.
Hey, sorry, I got a question. So like the brothers that wrote the manuscripts in Timbuktu, they wrote all those manuscripts in Arabic. But when you go to read those manuscripts, you realize, even though you're trying to read it in Arabic, it's wrote in Arabic, but they really talking their local dialect. They're talking their language. They just wrote it in Arabic. So are you saying that the Bantu wrote? They just write the hieroglyphs are Bantu writings that's wrote in hieroglyphs?
Okay, it seems like you're kind of combining some things. So there are a number of scripts amongst the Timbuktu manuscripts that are written with the Arabic script, but it's not Arabic language, it's local languages. And matter of fact, I'm so mad I just did not have the funds to jump on this. And there is a scholar, I forgot his name, but it's Maega, Dr. Maega, I forgot his first name, but he wrote a text on, I think it's titled something like Balancing Oral and Written Tradition, dealing with the Songhai people. And he's a professor, but he's also a prince among the Songhai lineage. Like the lineages of the kings and stuff still exist in Mali. And there's people, there's local families who have the scripts in their house. And what Dr. Maega was trying to get was some institutions, some Black institutions, as well as some people here to take the scripts and start studying them and writing about them and deciphering. And I remember me and Brother Sanjeti, Ra, we're in those talks and negotiations. But it just kind of fell through because of funding. But that was one of the things that he would mention, like a lot of this stuff is written with Arabic script, but it's in the local Songhai language and Soninke and whatever is, you know, kind of local there, which makes it hard for people, for everybody to decipher what is going. And even if it is written in Arabic, you got to understand that, like, I don't know, for example, have you, like, this is one of the reasons why I love Jordan Ingobani, who was, I think he died in the 80s. But in 1979, he wrote a text called Conflict of Minds, but he's written several texts. But the way that he writes, it's in English, but you can tell that it's like it's English words, but it is Zulu language and thought, like just the way. So he's writing in English, but you can kind of feel and be connected to the Zulu language and thought process, and just the way that they use words in things of that nature. And I'm assuming it's the same thing when you, even if you read Arabic from those African folks who was writing in Arabic, but were writing, you know, saying, because that's their native language, you know, Soninke, for example, or Songoy. And so you have certain semantics, you have certain nuances, certain ways that you express yourself, regardless of, it's just like when a Chinese person come here and tries to speak English, you know, or a Mexican, you can tell, like, you know, they're using English words, but they're still thinking in their native language. And that's what you would get in that context. Now, as far as the hieroglyphs are concerned, you know, it is my argument, and a few other scholars, that the ancient Egyptian language and or languages belong to a larger family that is not Afro-Asiatic, right? And that family itself was a language family that essentially was a Bantu language family structure. The Bantu languages that many may be familiar with today are a type of Bantu that coalesced into a certain type and then differentiated within the last 2,000 years in Central, South, and Eastern Africa. But the other languages are Bantu languages, even though we don't, and we're just using Bantu as a label. It could be anything, but we say a Bantu type language because of the structure, the underlying inner logic of the language and things of that nature that you are familiar with in Bantu. It presents itself in the ancient Egyptian language and or languages. And there are other languages that are not labeled Bantu, like Shekinah talks about Wolof being a Bantu type language, even though when you look at Wolof and you hear it, it doesn't necessarily quote unquote sound like a modern Bantu language. But when you put the stuff on paper and you start looking at the classes, the noun classes, and the structures and the inner logic of Wolof, it is a Bantu type structure. And that's exactly what, you know, certain authors like myself, Jean-Claude Mboli, Oscar Profuma, Dr. Mubai Binge Balolo, and others are arguing with ancient Egyptian. So this is why, like, when, you know, the examples that I showed, I can go to Proto-Bantu or a modern language like Chiluba and compare it with Sumerian and ancient Egyptian, because they come from the same, you know, more further in time, ancestral language and culture. And so that same thing that gave modern Bantu its characteristics, it exists in the ancient Egyptian. And so, like, the examples that I gave, that I showed earlier, when I shared my screen with that for those who are familiar with the transliteration schema of the ancient Egyptian, that which we would transliterate as lowercase a in the word Ankh, these are noun class prefixes. And that S in the Seneb, these are noun classes. Some of those T's that are suffixed at the end are noun classes. Or the nasalizer volar trill or the j, so-called j sound, the D with the underline for body parts. Those are noun classes, and I can match them up with modern Bantu languages and show the same series of correspondences in terms of the classes of the language. And this is why I can argue definitively that Egyptian is a Bantu language, but it's a type of Bantu language. Just like there are other type of Bantu languages that may not fully express what you would find, for example, in Chiluba. And so they'll call them Bantoid languages in places like Cameroon and in Nigeria, because they don't have the full expression of the noun classes. And it's the same thing with Sumerian. It's the same thing with the ancient Egyptian, because ancient Egyptian, being a lingua franca and trade language in that area, started to lose and fossilize a lot of its classes. And this is what happens when certain things, like when you think about Kiswahili, because Kiswahili became a lingua franca and trade language, it is a greatly reduced language in terms of its structure, in terms of its grammar and things, because so many speakers from different languages have learned it and things of that nature. And it's just a common feature with languages that become lingua francas that were a little bit more complex in its initial emergence, but over time, because of trying to communicate with a number of people, certain things became fossilized and certain things were abandoned in the language.
They say that lingua francas by nature of becoming that goes through like I guess we could call it as a simplification process. So it moves from complex to simplified, which allows it to be a lingua franca, because it's tugged on by different speakers. So that just makes sense. That's the nature of it itself. So yeah, that's
So I hope I made sense. I wasn't trying to go too long.
No, I think that's good. Plus, that brings us right here to the top of the hour, midnight.
Yeah, man.
And I wanted to, this is a good time to kind of cap it off, for everybody. So I guess we got who else we have on the panel though? We got Donnie. Does anybody else have anything closing? And I mean closing this time. Well, Asar, while you're here, I know what do you have cooking right now that people can expect in the near future that you are working on?
Well, right now I am just working on publishing this text here. This is Muntu Wa and Zombie. Portrait of Human as God's Special Creation. And I've started a publishing company called Medew and Della Press, and so this is the first text that is published under that banner that I have not written. And so the author of this text is Dr. Shilemalima Mukinge out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And he has, he's given some insight into the Chiluba language, Chiluba philosophy, religion, and culture in community with a number of other cultures. For example, the Congo, Mongo, Yansi, Bashi, Hema, and Lindu, all Bantu cultures in the Congo, as well as ancient Egyptian, Bambara, Fulani, Dogon, Mande, Yoruba, Igbo, Gikuyu, and the Zulu. And so it's a very comprehensive text. I have edited the text, and where we're still in the editing, I need to add the index and design of the cover and everything to this nature. So this is what's coming at the end of July. And then I've created an entity called the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology, and it also has its own. It's an imprint under Medew and Della Press in terms of the Medew and Della Center for Egyptology material that's to be published. But the first publication under that, which will be released sometime at the end of August, maybe the beginning of September, is a text called, Chiluba Maweja, Yoruba Orisha, and Ancient Egyptian Ak. And so it's an exploratory etymological study. And so this is, more for, the folks. This is more just straight Egyptology in linguistics. So so it's a bit more concise, to the point, but it is meant to be, just straight scholarly, material and text. And so the whole point of the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology is to publish material and to do studies, or what I'm calling now river studies, and creating a different field of study called Into Com. And that is the African centered study of Bantu languages and cultures and ancient Egyptian. That's the kind of a subfield in this form of Egyptology, but the orientation is the entire Nile River itself. So when you go to modern Egyptology institutes, Egypt is always in the Near Eastern studies. So we're focused on Nile River studies. So this was, ancient Egypt, the Meroe, Kush, Sahara, studies and archaeology, going down into Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Congo, and the Great Lakes area, all that which surrounds there. So whatever continuous history exists along the Nile River, that will be the focus, or the primary center and focus of the studies, of the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. So that's what's in the works.
All right. So that's like a lot in the oven, baking at 450 degrees.
Yeah, man.
Yes. So, anybody else? Aziz, what you got cooking? I know you still dealing with Wolof and everything. You got anything?
Definitely. I've been working on some things for a moment. I got a few presentations I wanna probably bring out. Definitely dealing with connections and maybe how the ancient Egyptians and modern Africans, particularly in Senegal, view divinity and relationships.
Okay, that sounds all right. So yeah, well, keep me posted on presentations. That's what I'm. I like presentations. I use presentations like movies. So all right. Anybody else? What's going down the line? Anybody else got anything in the works that we can expect presentation wise? Topical.
Short.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying something short.
Yeah, but presentations. Listen, that's where it's at, because to focus on a topic and kind of explore it and unpack it a bit. That's what we need. Anybody doing that is good. Nice bite size. That's cool.
Right.
Anybody else on the panel got something going on? Anything cooking that anybody can speak to? All right. Well, let me just share something so everybody can see my screen. So this is what Wujao has cooking.
Oh, that's big.
I've been cooking this, so it's been in the oven. You know, I got a crock pot. It's been a long time, and it's still in the works. So I don't even have. I stopped giving a deadline because I just kept frustrating myself. The pandemic kind of definitely threw off my trajectory in my plans and stuff. But this will be my next project that you all will see from me in this kind of way. Other than that, you know, the series of lives, chiming in on other people's lives, doing presentation. We have Divine Words Wednesdays where we focus on a single topic and kind of go in on something. Freestyle Friday, it's loose. We have fun. We open discussion, you know, showing people the 4 steps of transliteration, translation, all that good stuff. And we have another series called Welcome to the Sabite Dome where we kind of address misinformation, you know. So between those 3, that's what you'll see me and all of us we're involved with. So those who are watching, listening, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you subscribe to Asar's channel as well, because Asar, now I know Asar will plan his live. See, so you got an advantage dealing with Asar, but over here on us, you better hit the subscribe and notification, because we'll go live at 2 a.m. just out the blue. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. But other than that, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and stay tune in to everything. Avoid the noise, and stay safe. You know, we still got this virus going on, the variances that are happening, occurring, and just make informed, when it comes to that, just make informed decisions. If you are for or against the vaccine, whatever side you fall on, just make sure you're making a well-informed decision. So if you're against it, I should be able to come and ask you why without you being offended, and you should be able to break, you know, not that you like owe me an explanation, but you should be able to inform me why. It should be based around something, or the other way. And so to that, I say, you know, everybody stay safe and all that good stuff. So
Where's the after party?
Before you finish off, I was gonna say that, and I do have my volume 2 of the Penmanship coming out sometime this year. Is 2 out of there are 3 volumes in total, but I'm working on the 2nd volume.
Already.
all right, you say that kind of light and stuff. You gotta repeat that, because you know you know what you.
So you know the Simplified Sesh Medew Netcher Penmanship book. So the one that's out already is volume 1.
Okay, so hold on. Let me just share that so everybody can see what you have already out, and then what you got coming up. So go ahead. Now you can say what you're gonna say.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't have anything to prep to show.
You
But
have
yeah,
nothing to show, anything, you know.
now you just hit that with that question. But yeah, so yeah, volume 1 is out already. Volume 1 is very technical, so it just shows you like some of the techniques and, you know, the science behind it. Then you have volume 2, and then volume 3. I'm not gonna give up so much out yet, but volume 2 you should expect it this year, and then probably next year volume 3.
All right. So all right, y'all. So I said, where's the after party? So who got the after party? Because this is done with 3 hours. And anybody got the after party?
I can do an after party.
I want to hear about you know, the debate. I mean, I like a real debate, and so I missed it. And if that was structured like a good debate, I am curious to know how it went.
I can set up a show right now.
Okay, did you saw the debate?
It could be on that, or be whatever. Just the whatever after party. The what is this? This isn't the Simplified Dome. What's the show today called?
Oh, this is well, Freestyle Friday, but we actually didn't even do any freestyling. We just had an open discussion. But now, yeah, I was curious about the debate. So if anybody attended the debate or saw it, you know, give us some insight on the after.
Yeah, where's Sean?
Yeah, where's Sean?
Sean, come on in.
Sean in the oh, there goes Sean. All right, so sorry, you're gonna fire up a live, and I guess everybody
and it I'm gonna do it now. Yeah, so I'm a should I add Facebook? I'm not gonna add Facebook. I'm gonna add Facebook but I think with Facebook I have to make sure it's 10 minutes. Well, I can just go live. I can schedule it for 10 minutes, but I'm gonna go live in like 5 minutes. So what's today? What time is it? 12. I'm gonna go 12:20 a.m. Let's see.
Oh, and while we do that, I see
there you go.
St. Ank had a good question on the chat. It was asking, any of you know one of the first African American Egyptologists? So if anybody knows, has an answer.
Martin Delaney.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, definitely. So that was a good question.
Yeah. That and that's a proper acknowledgement, naming institution after that. So that's it. But all right, so I'm gonna wind this up. Again, I appreciate anybody tuned in, tuning in, will tune in the future, tune in to this as an archive. Everybody knows how we get down over here, what we talk about. We try to anchor everything into Kemet by way of the language in some form of fashion. We don't want to be stiff because we can get really boring and just discuss the verbal system of the language and everything. But we try to work around the periphery, anchor it in, talk about culture and so on and stuff. And we do it in different ways. So if you have a topic that you would like for us to cover or an inscription that you want us to put our eyes on, join our YouTube channel. All the links are inside of the description to all of our videos. Join inbox if you want to inbox directly or whatever. And then I always open a link up. Like we can have 100 people on the panel, and everybody, we all get along over here. So keep that in mind. All right, but I'm gonna say peace. But
I put not to interrupt, but I put because I know it's going to leave once y'all hang up. But if you want to be on the panel, I put the link for those who are on the current panel. I put the link to join the panel discussion in the private chat or in the back chat, however you like to say it. So it's going to go once he, and I guess I could just re-add it in once I go live. But I'll go live.
I'm saying, do you want to post it in the YouTube chat right now?
I guess I can. Let me.
I'm saying I could post it because I don't know if you're able to. Whatever, I could post it right now.
Well, I can. Well, hold on. I gotta distinguish. So on YouTube, I just created. So in the YouTube chat, I'm gonna put. Here is the after party YouTube link. So they can go there and I'm like, if you want to join, boom. So both links are in the current chat, but it's right there in the back for y'all as well. So I'm in there now, and
everybody get in your car, drive down the street. SARS house basement party right over there. All right, so appreciate, and I'm gonna say good night, which is good night, and Shemem Hotep, everybody.